Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Starting off the channel strong. I mentioned that hip hop was going to be one of the core pillars of this channel. I thought, what better way to start it off than with an Ice Cube tier list of some of his and all of his albums. So let's just get this rolling, ladies and gentlemen. I am Buster Yeager. I hope you all are having a great day today. And this is going to be our first video, a tier list on the man, the myth, the legend, the brother you love to hate, Ice Cube. So, getting started, we got Ice Cube's first album here, America's Most Wanted. This album came out in 1990. It was his first. It was an absolute banger, considered to be like one of the best albums that came out in 1990. I mean, there are so many banger songs on here, like The Brother You Love to Hate, America's Most Wanted, Can't Fade Me, The Bomb, songs like that. All those songs are bangers. This album, as a whole, is a great album. And for Ice Cube to leave NWA and just come straight out of it, rolling with guns blazing, is pretty amazing. And this is only the start of his career. So I think that deserves an A tier for sure. Now, moving on, we had Ice Cube's second album, Death Certificate. Now, we know that Ice Cube did have another, like, kind of smaller album that came out that was, it was one of the singles that he had. It was like Kill It Will. So there was that, but we didn't include that. And so, moving on though, we have Death Certificate. This album is one of my favorites of all time. It tells a very coherent kind of narrative of life as an African American growing up in the poverty stricken area of Compton, and Ice Cube just kind of talking about the United States and the problems that he was facing at the time. And this album has a lot of bangers like My Summer Vacation, a personal favorite of mine, The Bird in the Hand, Us. What else is on this album? True to the Game. That song is really good. Doing Dumb Shit. Another really good song. And the crown jewel, the cherry on top of this album is No Vaseline, the best diss track ever made. No question. Sorry, Tupac. Hit 'em Up is good, but No Vaseline clearly takes the cake here. So this album, for me at least, it hits every note, and it's everything that I love about Ice Cube comprised into an album. And it's one of his more hardcore albums, which I like about it. So I think for that, Death Certificate deserves to go in the S tier. Now, moving on from Death Certificate, we have another absolute banger, Ice Cube's third album, The Predator, which this album is probably his most popular. This album has songs like It Was a Good Day, Gangster's Fairy Tale 2, Check Yourself is on here, not the remix version though. Who Got the Camera, Say Hi to the Bad Guys. All these songs are really iconic, and I remember that like the backstory of this album is during like the LA riots in the 90s, and Ice Cube talking about them, and this album just has a bunch of bangers. It's a great album, fantastic, and It Was a Good Day is one of the best songs ever. So I don't think it's above Death Certificate, but certainly is on par with Death Certificate. Now, moving on, we have Ice Cube's next album, which is Lethal Injection. Now, Lethal Injection is a really solid album. There's a lot of good songs on here, and the really big song that stands out is You Know How We Do It. You Know How We Do It is just such a vibe. It's such a good song, and whenever I'm chilling with my buddies, I always will play that song, and it's just really fun to listen to. There's also some other great songs on this album, like Down for Whatever, Enemy, and what else is on here? Really though, like songs like that are just that are solid. I mean, this album I wouldn't put above Death Certificate or The Predator, but it certainly is up to those standards. I'm gonna put it above America's Most Wanted and A tier. Solid albums overall. Then the next album we got is War and Peace Volume 1, The War Disc. Now, this album came out, almost 5 years after Lethal Injection. And, Ice Cube was doing movies and TV shows at the time. So he really wasn't producing and making any more music. And this is kind of his comeback. I think this album has a few good songs. Like Pushing Weight comes to mind, or like Ghetto Vit, like songs and stuff like that kind of come to mind. But honestly, I think Cube does take a bit of a dip here in quality. And overall, this album, I'm going to put it in B tier. And we'll just move on from there. And we got War and Peace, Volume 2, The Peace Disc. I would say this album is substantially better than the first one. It definitely has some more bangers like You Can Do It or Hello, and those songs are good, or like Roll All Day. That's a really good song. I would say this album definitely is better than the first volume. It's still not on par with like Death Certificate or Lethal Injection. I would probably put it in either high B, low A. We'll put it in low A for now. And then we have Laugh Now, Cry Later. This album I haven't listened to like too much of it. I've listened to some of the songs on it, like some of the bangers, and it's a solid album. I think a lot of people hype this album up as being like one of Cube's best, and I don't really see it. I mean, songs like Why We Thug or Stop Snitching, those songs are good, but overall, I really don't have too much of an opinion on this album. So I'm gonna put it in the B tier, and we'll see from there. And then we got Raw Footage. This album is really it's a solid album. I don't think Cube really has a bad album per se. But this album would definitely probably there's only really one song on this that I think is kind of a banger, and that's Gangster Rap Made Me Do It. So for that reason, it's gonna go in the B tier as well. Then moving on, we have I Am the West. Personally, this album is not it's not one that I love. There's not really any bangers on this album, and it's just kind of dry, and we can kind of see Cube's been making music for almost a decade, or sorry, not a decade, 20 years now with this album. So honestly, I think it's a probably C tier album at best. And then the final album, this album came out in 2018, I think. Everything's Corrupt. This is a solid album. There's some good songs on this album, don't get me wrong. There are songs like Sorry You Ain't Got No Haters or Good Cop, Bad Cop. Those songs are pretty good, and overall, I mean, it's not a bad album by any means. I think the cover art looks pretty cool now with that bloody hand holding that fist of dollars. But it's nothing on par with his starting albums here. His kind of first four, his Fatal Four Way that were really popular and kind of hit home. So I would put this album also in B tier. And overall, I think these rankings are pretty solid. I mean, I don't really know if there's anything else I would change on this. Maybe a few albums here and there. But overall, yeah, that's my Ice Cube album ranking. I really hope you all enjoyed. Please subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.